In this section, guys, we're going to talk about an equation called slope-intercept form. And this is a really simple way to graph an equation um, when you have it set up in a form that looks like this. And when we click, so slope-intercept form is, this is a formula that you're going to need to remember. It's y equals mx plus b, where the m is the slope, like we've talked about before. The change in the y is divided by the change in the x, how much it goes up divided by how much it goes over, and b is the y-intercept. So they're telling you that whatever number is next to the x, right? So as long as you have the y all by itself over here, and then the equal sign, nothing, no 2, no 3, no 4, no nothing next to the y, just one y, um, and then it's the equal sign, and then whatever's next to the x, like in this case the 5, is the slope of the line, and then the negative 2 is the y-intercept. And I'll explain what that y-intercept is in a second. But they're saying, like, think about it this way. Like, you can think of 5x minus 2 as 5x plus minus 2. That way you know what it is. But let's see if I can pull this up here. So in a graph that looks like this, and this is the graph of this equation right here. So we have a slope of 5 and the y-intercept negative 2. And what that means is, if you guys remember correctly, this up and down line is the y-axis, right? The side to side is the x-axis. So really all it's telling you is that our graph crosses over the y at negative 2. And it looks like maybe yeah. So in this case, if the next line here would be up 5 and over 1. But just to illustrate the point of the fact that the y-intercept happens at negative 2. So, and the slope is up 5 over 1, so it'll be up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and over 1. So here's our next point, right? So the slope is up 5 over 1, and our y-intercept is at negative 2. Okay. So you guys can take a look at this one. Of course, it's a fraction. They always want to give you a fraction before you feel totally comfortable with this, but that's no problem. Just using our formula, y equals mx plus b, and translating what we have here into what the m is and what the b is should give us that answer. So they're going to give you some choices, and you should be able to figure this out. So I'll give you a second. Figure out which one of them is the slope and which one is the y-intercept. Well, if we went based on what we said that y equals mx. So we said the number next to the x is our slope, right? And the number that's not the y, that's not the x, is our y-intercept. Okay. Let's look at another one. So in this case, we are given they give us the slope and they give us the y-intercept and they want us to write it in slope-intercept form. Again, so that equation is y equals mx plus b, where the m is the slope and the b is the y-intercept. Just like we said right here, right? If this is the slope, right, we have to have the y all by itself, the equal sign, and then it's whatever number that we said is the slope is next to the x, and then the other number, our b, is our y-intercept. And we can show you what this looks like in a graph too. Let me pull this over here. Hopefully we can see it, not too far off the screen. That our slope is down 4 and over 5, right? Down 4 over 5. Of course, they put them in weird places here because I didn't go by ones. But this crosses at 7 because this is our y-intercept. We'll also have the x-intercept. We'll talk about that at some point too, but we're not going to worry about that just yet. But this is what the graph of this would look like. Let's see if we can find it. So yeah, so this point meets right in the spot. So it goes down 1, 2, 3, 4, and over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that shows us our slope is down 4 over 5. So they want you to try one. Let's see what we got here. What's an equation of a line with the slope of 3 over 2 and a y-intercept of negative 1, with some choices for us to use here. Again, the y, in each one of these, the y is set to the left with the equal sign next to it, and then we're looking at what else we have left here. So take a second See if you can identify the right answer, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about it. Well, in this case, the answer is D, right? Because again, with our slope, a slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b, where we know that this has to be our slope, which goes in our m spot in our y equals mx plus b, and then it's -1. So shouldn't be any problems there, and hopefully we can move on to the next problem here.
In this problem, you will write an equation from a graph. Which equation represents the line shown? A, y equals -2 times x plus 1. B, y equals 2 times x plus 1. C, y equals 1/2 times x minus 2. Or D, y equals 2 times x minus 2.
Well, if you think back to what we just did, right? Our slope needs to be the number next to the x, and our intercept needs to be the number next to the y. Well, I think the easiest thing to do here is just figure out where this graph crosses the up and down, the y-axis, right? And it crosses right here at -2. And so we know that our b, our second number, has to be -2. So it can't be either of these two. It has to be either C or D.
How can you use a graph to write an equation of a line? You can use points on the graph to find the slope and the y-intercept of the line. Then use the slope-intercept form. Find the slope. 2 points on the line are 0, -2, and 2, 2. Use the slope formula.
Didn't necessarily have to use a slope formula here. You could literally see how far it went up, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, and over 2, right? You're going to get the same thing when you do the mathematics or when you do the calculating.
Substitute the coordinates into the slope formula.
Just like we did in the last section.
Now simplify. So the slope of the line is 2.
Now, it's important here that you could literally go up 4 over 2 and find it, right? But you also can go up 2 over 1. So they're saying right here that the slope is 2. This is really the same as 2 over 1. So just know that this is still this is still a rise over run. It's just up 2 over 1, okay?
You can eliminate any answer choice with the slope other than 2. The y-intercept is -2. Write an equation in slope-intercept form. Use the slope-intercept form of an equation of a line. Substitute 2 for m and -2 for b.
That's all we've been doing, substituting them in.
Then simplify.
Really all they did from that step to that step was they made that plus -2 a -2.
So an equation for the line is y equals 2 times x minus 2. The correct answer is D.
Again, when we think about slope-intercept formula, it's y equals the slope of the number times x plus or minus the y-intercept here. So we figured out that the slope was up 4 over 2, which was the same as 2 over 1, and then we figured out that the y-intercept was -2. And that's how we figured this one out.
Now it's your turn.
So this question says, what do you expect the slope of the line to be from looking at the graph? Well, you could figure that out by finding a couple points and seeing what it is. You could ask yourself whether or not it's a positive or negative slope. And you could also figure out where it crosses the y. So why don't you take a minute, do some calculations and see what you get. I'll give you some answer choices. Well, first choice says -2. The graph slants down from left to right. That's true. And it's negative. That's also true. And the x and y intercepts are 2 each. Well, let's see. 1, 2 crosses the y at 2, crosses the x at 2. So, yeah, it's going to be A. But let's look at the other one. So it says -1. The slants down from left to right, so the slope is negative. The line should be negative. That's true. 1/2. The x-intercept is greater than the y-intercept. That's not true. And x and y-intercept are 2 each and positive, so the slope of the line is 1 and positive. That's not true. Oops. I guess I had the wrong answer. Let's go back. Oh, this was saying that the slope was -2. Sorry. So the slope is -1 in this case. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, it's -1, right? The slope is -1, slants from down to that. So the slope of the line is negative. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to end this video here, and we'll come back and maybe try a couple other ones later in this section.